Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and I want to welcome you to day 172 of Humanity Rising. Humanity Rising is an initiative of Ubiquity University and over 300 partnering organizations from all over the world that arose last spring when the world was descending into the depths of the pandemic as a public service. So that on a daily basis, people from all over the world could come together and share their experiences of what it was like going through this unprecedented global event that's put most of the world in lockdown and engaging in social distancing and wearing masks and becoming acutely aware of our health and our viability as the economies came to a standstill. And we were confronted by a little tiny virus, a little microbe that has proven itself to be amazingly resilient and adaptive, such that as we enter 2021, the pandemic is still very much with us. Different countries are employing different strategies as they navigate their way through. And vaccinations are on their way, and yet new variants are emerging. So the world is still caught up in an immersion into nature that is forcing humanity into the conversation about who we are and how we want to relate to the larger ecosystem. So it's with great pleasure that I welcome all of you to this ongoing public service of Ubiquity and our partnering organizations. One of our practices from the very beginning is to just take a moment as we begin to just pause and take a few deep breaths, feel your aliveness, and then close your eyes and place your attention on your heart. Try to listen to your heartbeat in a spirit of gratitude and thanksgiving that you're alive. Your heart is beating. And that every moment, every choice counts in shaping the destiny of our human community. Thank you, everyone. Now, with an open heart and a heart full of gratitude for all of you that have joined us today, I want to open our program by observing something that has been a constant theme on Humanity Rising, that perhaps the central lesson that the coronavirus is teaching humanity is that we've moved beyond the age of sustainability. We have so damaged our ecosystem that it is no longer possible to be sustainable with an ecosystem that is essentially broken. And the central fact of our time was brought out by the World Wildlife Fund last year when they said that in the last 50 years, we have lost 69% of all the animals, birds, fishes, insects, forests in the world. You can't be sustainable with that. The only option left for the human race is regeneration. How we now renew nature, how we renew ourselves, how we enable new visions and new possibilities, how we implement solutions that can reanimate the natural world. That's what we're about. And that's what Humanity Rising increasingly is focusing its attention on. As we've mentioned before, we're partnering with the University of International Cooperation in Costa Rica and a growing network of NGOs and companies and academic institutions to create a whole new MBA. Used to be in a sustainable world that you had a master's in business administration. You just administered things. That's broken. So we're coming out with a master's in regenerative action, connected with bioregions around the world, with cities around the world, and that are following in the footsteps of Amsterdam, has now embraced donut economics as the organizing principle for that great city as they move beyond the pandemic. The United Nations has declared this next decade as the decade of ecosystem restoration. And so it's with great pleasure that I want to introduce you all today to Jennifer Valoria. She's from the Philippines. She was born poor. She was capable and highly intelligent and navigated her way into an incredibly good education, and then started to work in the finance industry and was very successful and founded a venture capital firm, ISLA, that has been focusing on impact investment for rural development, and is passionate, as a growing number of people are, and companies and NGOs, about how we deploy financial resources to regenerate nature at this critical time when scientists all over the world are telling us that we're running out of time. So this next decade, from 2021 to 2030, is undeniably the most critical decade in the history of humankind. From our very beginnings till now, we've basically been able to do what we want in a vast ecosystem that seemed to be able to absorb us. But in the last 50 years, we have so overburdened nature that it is groaning and creaking and breaking under our feet. And COVID has stopped our world right in the nick of time to put us all in the one conversation: how do we regenerate the world? And Jennifer is one of the pioneers in this effort. So Jennifer, I want to welcome you to Humanity Rising and now turn the program over to you. And after the presentations that Jennifer and Benjamin and JCs will be making, Amina, I'll circle back and guide the discussion. Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you very much, Jim, for that wonderful introduction. Good afternoon or good evening or good morning to everyone. It is really an honor to be here, Jim, and to share with you our stories, our experiences, and our vision, and how to really transform not just ourselves, but really use that as a basis to transform our world for the better and for a more equitable world that actually takes into account every sentient being, everyone in the ecosystem, and not just to look after them, but to really bring back the biodiversity that we've lost along the way as we pursued growth over the last decades or even centuries. So I think maybe just a very brief introduction of myself and my co-panelists today. We are really going to share, what we would do is to share with you our experiences in the Philippines, both as investors, for myself as an impact investor, and Benjamin as a social entrepreneur, and Amina, who's an ecosystem player in the Philippines. So Benjamin is a co-founder of a social enterprise in the Philippines called Kayumangi Organics that uses natural produce to produce the most beautiful and healthiest food you can put in your body for a healthier people, healthier body, and also healthier better communities. So and Amina is joining us from India. Amina is actually lives in a global eco village in India, where she is actually looking to so where she's a healer, and her journey of getting attuned and awakened to higher heart and higher mind of consciousness has published a book called Adventures in Manifesting. So Amina will be joining us really to put time. I'm so sorry. To put a kind of sorry, I'm getting nervous in here. So let me just restart. Amina's intention and action are directed towards wholeness, world wellness, spiritual and social transformation, and equitable prosperity. And her vision is to manifest inner happiness and harmony and love for all through inclusive community investments and compassionate collaborations that preserve the sacredness of life, encourage eco-lifestyles, fostering trust, nourishment, and regenerative relationships with each other and nature. So with that brief introduction, perhaps I could also introduce myself. As Jim has said, that my story really underpins everything I do. I was born of a rural family, a farming community in the Philippines, where I grew up in abject poverty. My mother left me when I was 8 years old, to come and came to the UK as a waitress. And over the period until I was 17, I saw her 3 times. So I know what it's like to be a child of what they call overseas Filipino workers, where forced migration or economic migration forced my mother to not to abandon me, to leave me behind. And I grew up without really a parental supervision. So as I grew older, I started really questioning the life as So I'm getting very nervous in here. So, I mean, having grown up in rural poverty, I experienced the hardships of not just having parents, but not having parents around me, but also not having any material things. And so as I as I grew up, and oh my God, I'm so sorry. As I sorry, Jim, can you just intervene quickly for the times I'm having a little bit. Wow, sorry.
It's okay, Jennifer, just take a breath. We're
Sorry.
fine.
Okay, sorry. Okay, can I start again?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Sorry. Okay. I mean, having grown up poor, rural poverty for me has been like almost like a mission for me to solve. As I experience of like, I guess a lifestyle that would be almost the dream of many in London, having gosh, so sorry, I'm really having, oh my God, sorry.
Seems like eternity. It's okay, Jennifer.
Sorry, this is
Just take
very
a couple
emotional for
breaths.
me.
Yeah, just take a couple breaths. Benjamin, maybe you could talk to us a little bit about what you're doing, and we'll come back to Jennifer, okay? Thank you.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, sorry.
That's fine, Jennifer. Right, so I just wanted to share a little bit about how I met Jennifer, because she's incredibly personal about what she pursues. So I understand that it can be a little bit difficult at times to share that story. But I met her about 5 or 6 years ago, perhaps in the Philippines, when I was volunteering there. And she came into this, what is called an enchanted farm, where people were all focused on solving poverty and helping each other start social enterprises where they could help the poor ones and give them jobs that would lift them out of poverty. And so Jennifer had this amazing vision of starting an investment fund that really would actually enable these enterprises to do that work on the ground, not from a perspective of maximizing profit and earning as much dividends as you can, but to really actually enable these people, these social entrepreneurs, to do that transformative work on the ground. She was very passionate about it, and that is about 6 years ago. So she's been on this journey on starting it gradually, inventing how to go about impact investment to actually make it have the impact that we need, which is to transform the world, which we can only transform through transforming people, individuals. So it's a very personal journey once again. And I'm very proud to be able to share this panel together with Jennifer and with Amina as well, who comes in with its global perspective of building eco-villages around the planet. It's been a great pleasure, Jennifer. When you're ready, feel free to share.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. Okay, I'm so sorry, everyone. Let me really just restart now. As I said, I came to London when I was 17 to join my mother, and having seen her work as a waitress, because she was a waitress when I arrived here, I persevered to study part-time in the evening, and I worked full-time during the day. And in space of 4 years that I was here, I was already working for British Telecom then, and managed to complete a degree in financial economics and joined an investment bank in London. I was told that I was perhaps the first Filipina hired in the UK as an investment banker. So the journey started there. And with that background, I understand what it's like to live a fairly affluent lifestyle in London, and at the same time understand what the needs are of the people in rural communities. Because as I grew older, I traveled back home repeatedly, connecting with my roots to really understand what's happening on the ground. And as I transitioned from being an investment banker to becoming a mother, I saw how my children were really growing up as privileged children in London. And I thought that this cannot continue. They need to understand what it's like to be underground, to be with the people that I grew up with, to understand my culture rather than just their culture in the UK. So we started going back home, and this brought me back to my roots and connected me to the rural, to the farms, the farming communities that I came from. And having seen the hardships of the farmers and the entrepreneurs on the ground in really getting their businesses off to start, it's remarkable. There's just really a lack of capital for them to be able to scale up their businesses and to really do the things that they need to do. Feed their children, send their children to school, the basic things that we actually take for granted in the West. So I embarked on this almost kind of, I think the transformation started there for me. And I started really questioning, what is the use of my capital? I mean, how can I really effectively use my capital to help them? I could not, I mean, I'm not a billionaire per se, or not many of us are, but part of me, my heart was so driven to help them, but I could not help them through philanthropy because I know it's not sustainable and I don't have enough capital to do so. So I had to really explore, what are the alternatives? What are the things that I could do as an individual? How can I help my people? How can I help restore the communities? Because as I traveled back to my communities, to my hometown, I've seen the degradation of the environment. The river that I used to swim on as a child is gone. There's so many noticeable changes in the environment I was not able to explain. So in London, as I reached maturity, let's say, I started really looking at how can I be part of the solution? And so I became an impact investor in the UK, an angel impact investor. So I started really looking at startups that are doing good in rural communities, because that's that's what resonated with me. And a lot of the so I joined an investment bank that had like a number of angels that would get together. A lot of us were former investment bankers or existing investment bankers, and we would pull together our own little capital to fund startups. But a lot of them were really looking more at funding scalable enterprises, tech, and when there, like a presentation from a social entrepreneur comes, like say from Africa, a lot of them, or a lot of the investors, co-investors, started really kind of almost stepping back and say, that's Africa, it's food, there's high risk, low return. And they call themselves impact investors. So I started really delving deeper into this. How can we truly, and as an investor, we know the risk reward principle or policy. It's like you need, even though as an impact investor, we still really looked for return on capital. We say impact investment is triple bottom line, people, profits, and planet. Ultimately, profit still is the return is still the primary aim of many impact investors. So as an individual investor, I kept looking for these investment opportunities, but not so many in the UK. So that's why I went home. I went home to the Philippines to really explore what I could do. And that's where I met, I worked with the NGOs on the ground. That's how I met Benjamin and Amina. And really I tried to understand, why is capital not flowing into these businesses, these enterprises, these meaningful enterprises that are helping the people and to earn decent living and to protect the environment. But I over the last few years that I was there, I've learned, I've understood that really there are a lot of opportunities out there, but the capital is not flowing because there's so many layers to the capital, and most of investors are still really looking primarily for financial return ahead ahead of the regeneration and the protection of the planet. And so ISLA was born out of this mission to really kind of say, how do we really activate more capital and channel capital more effectively to these businesses? And so the journey began, and I started reading up, and I started really looking at the SDGs, and really there's no shortage of capital in the world. I think recent estimates says that there's $37 trillion of capital circulating in the capital market, and yet not much is flowing to the ground. And with regards to SDGs, it's estimated that we need $2.5 trillion annually to achieve the to finance the SDG goals. So the question I had is, how do we take part in that? There's a lot of capital, yes, chasing this, kind of deals, but deals that are probably big enough to absorb some of the big capital, the capital that's available in the market. And yet on the ground, the institutions that need the capital are too small. How do we break the capital? How do we actually channel the capital effectively? What I'd like to really share with you right now is just to show you that that my understanding of how the capital flows in the global financial system, so that you understand why the job that we're doing is actually much harder than anyone else. So if you look at the global capital flow here, if you really look at the sources of capital at the top, development financial institutions, and like the World Bank, sovereign wealth funds, global funds, ultra high net worth individuals have so much capital slush, that they can potentially use to solve the global problems or to address the needs to finance the SDGs.
Jennifer, could you go full screen?
Sorry.
Full screen, please.
Sorry.
Could you put your slide in full screen, please?
Oh, wow. Sorry, Richard, I can't hear you.
Could you put your slide in full screen?
Richard, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I was just asking to put it in full screen. I'll put it in, never mind.
Yeah, go ahead, Jennifer. Jennifer, are you still with us?
I think we've lost her. Why don't you pick it up and go to Benjamin or Amina? And
hi, everyone. I think we've lost Jennifer for a moment. So Benjamin, why don't you take it from here and do your presentation, and then we can circle back to Jennifer after you're done.
Jennifer's back, Jim.
Okay, that would be better if she's back.
Jennifer, are you back?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Thank you, Benjamin. We'll put you back on standby.
Sorry, my Wi-Fi is not displaying up too.
Not to worry. Zoom happens. We're all very used to this. So carry on, Jennifer. And if you could put the request was that when you do the slideshow to put your screen on full screen. It's just easier for people to see. If that's a challenge, then no worries. But carry on.
Okay. Let me just. Okay. Can you see my slide?
Not yet.
Not yet, Jennifer.
Okay, hold on one moment, sorry. Share screen.
There we go.
Okay, perfect, sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, this is just like a simple diagram for us to share how we see the flow of capital in the global financial system, where it comes from, and why smallholder farmers or micro SMEs that operate primarily in least developed countries are not getting the capital that they need to be able to sustain themselves, generate decent livelihood for the people on the ground, let alone protect the environment. So with this kind of level of intermediation, it's no wonder that capital is not flowing to the ground, and even if it flows, it becomes very expensive for this enterprises to be able to afford, and thus a lot of them are not kind of availing themselves of the capital that's coming from the likes of microfinance institutions, venture funds, because it's not necessarily addressing their needs. Now, I think in terms from the perspective of investors, I think they're really looking at how can we then channel this capital is to really aggregate the investments, so to attract more capital into the system. So, they're really looking at that kind of more an ecosystem investment rather than businesses, like investment in businesses and in institutions. And yet institutions do not have that kind of capability, especially at the level of the micro SMEs, to pull themselves together, to coordinate themselves together, to be able to absorb the capital that's made available for them from various sources. Most of these organizations are relying on remittances or crowdfunding platform or families and friends or NGOs. Sorry, did I? So how do we really facilitate and unleash the flow and capital is to work with enterprises on the ground that are led by visionaries, people that like Benjamin, who have experience globally, who are actually based locally and understand the systemic change that need to take place to be able to facilitate to be able to absorb the capital that's available. Our role in ISLA is to ensure that businesses and entrepreneurs like Benjamin get the guidance on get to the understanding of what the investors require to be able to invest in their enterprises. So that's pretty much what ISLA is about. We are basically an intermediary that's really focused on on channeling capital and activating capital to rural enterprises in rural communities. And because we truly believe that if we invest in these businesses, then a lot of the global problems that we have, like forced migration, biodiversity loss, and all the other challenges that we're facing today could be eradicated or solved rather than, could be solved. And for us, if we can activate more capital to businesses like this, then a lot of our problems could be solved. But the question we have is, how do we truly activate this capital? And based from my journey, it is more a case of a personal journey. From how I see it, unless we as individuals transform the way we use our own capital, then maybe there's really very little hope for us to solve a lot of the problems that we are facing today as humanity, because we as individuals need to transform ourselves and the use of our energy and including our capital for the greater good. So thank you. Sorry. Over to you, Benjamin, to share your story.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was indeed very touching. And we know that this is very personal to you, and all our journeys should be very personal to us, as should be our businesses, which are an extension of our personal journey. I want to thank you for what you've shared. And well, I would like to share my story a little bit as a social entrepreneur. So my name is Benjamin Bernabela. I was born and raised in the Netherlands. And 8 years ago, I went on my way to volunteer in the Philippines. So I want to share a little bit about how that went and how I got to starting the enterprise and some of the things that I realized. As one of the social entrepreneurs who need to basically do the job on the ground to transform our world and address these challenges. So I had just finished my master's in international political economy at the University of Warwick, and I had 6 months before starting my PhD. I also had a burning desire to work hard to see this world well, inhabited by people who have every reason to be grateful for their life's journeys. That's my desire. But I had no money. I only had a stipend to volunteer for 6 months before returning to university. So I enter a country which feels so counter to the cultural and social values that are my normal, that it launches me on a path towards my self-destruction, in fact, as I throw out all I have to give to make this world a better place. I parked my PhD plans indefinitely, realizing that making this world a better place needs me to be able to function strongly and skillfully, but above all, feeling myself well and peaceful on the ground in a country with so much poverty and suffering. And more books were not going to help me get there. But 1 year later, I meet my Filipino partner. Let me just put up a little picture here. Let me share my screen. Forgot to do that. There you go. So this is our logo, and I'm gonna show you my partner just for some visuals. Yeah. So we launched a social enterprise, Kaimangi Organic, which means the brown skin color of Filipino people. So we're all ready. Our production facility for coconut sugar and other products is ready, and we are full of hope that our enterprise will eradicate poverty among farmers, offer great employment to many, and wonderful, healthy, organic products to Filipinos. We want Filipinos to be proud of themselves, of who they are. And so our brand carries the slogan, excellent in nature. Let me show you our logo for a moment. We want to make it clear to everyone who sees our products that brown-skinned Filipinos, again, that is the meaning of the word Kaimangi, are excellent in nature, just like everyone else. Because our company was going to invest in the dignity of the Filipino. That's the tagline of our company, as excellent in nature is the tagline of our brand. We want to invest in the dignity of Filipinos. We wanted to make poor Filipinos feel worthy and valued by treating them with the love and respect they deserve and making every effort we could make for them. Because we believe that if we would do so, they would begin to feel within themselves that sense of self-love and dignity that would move and motivate them to improve themselves and their lives. That they would realize that they do not need to wait for pity from rich people to help them out. Having reconnected with themselves inwardly, we knew that they would see that they already possess everything they need to build a better country themselves. Filipino people are very capable, very talented, and work very hard. But our vision is great, the plans are good, the dedication is strong. Both my partner and I, we complement each other really well, like bread and butter, to make our daily work and living truly transformative and have the envisioned impact That required a level of mastery that neither of us was even remotely close to. The first quarter passes, this is 2013, and I begin to see very clearly that the journey we embarked on had to commence by each of us actually growing to become the person that can have that positive impact on the world, that can lead the world forward right from where it was, without dreams and imaginations or visions, but right from where it was. So we were actually chartering a path that was not in existence. What do I mean? My partner was still married and afraid for judgment and unwilling to hurt her family. She hid our relationship and pretended all continued following the conventional norm. I had the first breakdown of my life sometime before we started together, when I heard that the young lady with whom I had been together and who had already left the country was pregnant. And so, together with the enterprise, commences my journey as a father in a constellation that was doomed to blow up. Blowing up it did. It really tore us apart from within. It cost us everything we most wanted and needed for ourselves. I wanted people to experience me as a good person, doing good to others. My partner wanted people to see her as successful. Something happened to my presentation here. Yes. My partner wanted people to see her as successful, having a perfect life. And we each for ourselves based our sense of self-worth on those aspects. They were basically our core motivation through our lives. And that came crushing down on us harder than we could withstand. I was the first to surrender, probably because I was the younger one. And as I did, something new opened within. A sense that I had to anchor myself in the ways of spirit and work in harmony with spirit. Whatever the hell that meant, I really had no idea. I was brought up Christian in a way that had made me lose respect for Christianity 10 years earlier. But the sense that I got was crystal clear. It even came with a mental picture of Jesus carrying his cross. And that was the most shocking part. But what I came to realize as I searched how I could possibly work in harmony with spirit was that I had to learn how to love. And the Philippines and the circumstances of my life were just the perfect practice ground for that. And so as our enterprise continued to grow, doubling its sales year upon year, despite our being embroiled in serious personal challenges, I should probably say mess, I shifted my focus to learning how to live peacefully amidst the injustice, the inadequacies, and suffering that I witnessed each day, and to grow in my ability to bring love to every act and every word of mine aimed at improving those circumstances. I dedicated myself to that with all my heart because I knew with every fiber in my body that only that loving and peaceful acting would carry the vibration to accomplish within others the change we had envisioned. So I had to be that change, first of all, and that became my focus. The enterprise became simply my practice ground, and I trusted the outcomes because I knew that I was aligned with the ways of spirit. That now that my intention was focused on love, that I could actually be guided by spirit because my will was dedicated to that. And so our journey truly began in earnest. And very soon, we actually began to enlarge our vision. I'll just show you our products for a moment here. Yeah. We realized that to enable that journey that we had been through, my partner and I, of fulfillment of our own inner potential was actually the most important part, the most important thing that we could bring to people. And so we call this journey from heritage to destiny. Let me just switch here. From heritage to destiny is the journey of connecting with our heritage, not only what we inherit from the world in which we live, the natural world, but also our personal capabilities, our intelligence, our skills and talents that we have worked on developing, hopefully, as well as our spiritual heritage, the spiritual potential that each of us has within ourselves. Also connect with that. And then to journey by working through every day in the present moment toward a destiny that we envision together. A destiny that makes us feel fulfilled, happy, and grateful about our lives, in which we can grow towards our fulfillment, and that gives us that sense of satisfaction. So we started working on about 10 hectares of land to build an eco-village. An eco-village that would be the space, we call it a cradle, wherein people could be sort of born again from a more human and survival-based attitude or inner place towards one where they can actually live from a spiritual potential and live much more profoundly, much more consciously. And to go through that process in that space, in that cradle. And we call that eco-village Isinilang na Maharlika. Those are Tagalog words which mean something like born again as a Maharlikan, which is the meaning being translated as a free and dignified person.
Hey,
No longer...
Benjamin, are you showing slides? Because we're not seeing them.
Oh, okay, I wasn't aware that you're not seeing it. I was showing slides, yes.
Okay, maybe you could go back a little bit. Maybe the last minute or so is what we were missing. Thanks.
Are you seeing this? Yeah, you can see this, right?
Yes, we can see them now. Thank you.
So let me just go through this briefly as I did while speaking. Here we have an impression of what we envision an eco-village. For those of you who don't know it, Amina will speak about this more, so I'm not going to go into much detail. But and here's a slide of the process of moving from heritage to destiny. Oops. So it has these three aspects that are woven together, connecting with our roots, working in the present moment towards the destiny we envision. And yes, and then what is very important is that in colonized countries, there are a lot of feelings, sentiments of sort of inferiority and sort of elevating the former colonizer or the Western world, if you will, as the epitome of development, while feeling that they themselves are sort of far behind. And we want to shift it upside down, that people begin to feel that they are proud, that they are dignified, that they are free and creative, because we feel that within themselves, people have what it takes to build their country up. And it only needs to be activated. And so that is why we are on our journey with Kaimangi Organic, as well as through the Eco-Village, to offer that space where people can go through that journey and we can guide them and they can build that world, beautiful, sustainable world that Amina will speak about in more detail as she will explain Eco-Villages and our vision around it. I want to thank you. And I was going to stop my sharing, but back here. I want to thank you for your time listening, and I look forward to continuing more in the panel discussion afterwards. Amina, over to you.
Thank you, Benjamin. And hello again, everyone. Let's just take a deep breath together and bring the stories of Isla, Jennifer, Benjamin, and a lot like us in the world to our hearts. And send them more love, more light, more prosperity, and more unity with everything that our world needs. So I am Amina Bal, and today I'm here on this forum, invited by my dear friend Jennifer, who's also a co-light worker, bringing light to the capital markets and to the energy and the consciousness of money in our world. Thank you, Jim, Thank you to the Humanity Rising team, to Ubiverse, Ubiquity. I would like to really start at where Jim started in the beginning, which was, he asked this question, how do we really regenerate our world? And I think for me personally, my story of my regeneration of my soul consciousness is what has brought me today to regenerating the world. And I do this actively through my work with the Global Eco Village Network, and also with a lot of different projects that I support. Most of them are towards healing past history and trauma, especially of women and children, and of communities whose voices haven't been heard. So the work of the Global Eco Village Network, that I call my community, my tribe, how I really came to it was because I spent a lot of time seeking my soul consciousness. I started my journey actually working in the big corporate world, thinking I'm going to be a very successful businesswoman. And I went on to setting up my own design company. So I left the corporate world as an employee. I left the enterprise world as a startup, because at that moment, I feel my own human consciousness was not fully transformed to service. And it is only when I moved to the Philippines, which was about nearly 11 years ago, and I journeyed deep down into connecting my head and heart, my mind, body, soul, did I find my true purpose. And my true purpose was really to serve Mother Earth. And today, all the work I do, I only do it in stewardship of Mother Earth. And the Global Eco Village Network has been a great platform for me as an ambassador of the Global Eco Village Network, and also as a regional council member for Asia and Oceania. I'm able to really work with grassroots communities and bring to them the global world and take their knowledge, their solutions, their regenerative models to the global world. So for me, I work as a bridge of consciousness and a bridge of capital. And for those of you who are not connected to the Global Eco Village Network, we're actually a network of communities that are catalyzing each other for a regenerative world. Global Eco Village Network envisions a world of empowered eco-citizens and communities where we are individually designing and implementing our pathways and building bridges of peace, prosperity, and international solidarity. So at the Global Eco Village Network, for going back to rethinking and redesigning impact investment, the way we look at investment and the way we look at regeneration is, which a lot of you here probably are already in that consciousness. But I would like to give this reminder to those who are impact investing and yet haven't fully realized that what impact really means. We are still looking at saying maybe individually that some of us want an ecological impact, some of us want a social impact, some of us want a cultural community impact, and others want an economic impact. But at the Global Eco Village Network, we inspire people to build local communities based on whole system thinking. And this whole system thinking is based on whole system design, integral thinking, where we keep our planet, our Earth, as the center of the stakeholder circle. Everything we do is redirected towards preserving our planet. In the process, we take deep care of the people and our communities that we work with. So we believe, like people in the Capital Institute also believe, that economic vigor is only a product of social and human vitality, which is really rooted in our ecological health and the inclusive development of the capabilities and potentials of humans. So like Benjamin said, that investing in the human consciousness is what is going to transform our world. And like Jennifer said, that it is the values that we carry within our hearts that are going to shape our enterprises and our capital. So at the Global Eco Village Network, which is a network of global communities that live in small communities, work at grassroots. We work with participatory design, where we integrate all dimensions of regeneration, which is social, cultural, ecological, and economic. And we do this in a way that we honor spirit, which means that there is interdependence amongst all of us, and there is a higher consciousness that is guiding us. So going back to my story, when I came to the Philippines and how I got connected to the Global Eco Village Network, is that I started my journey as a spiritual seeker. And when I found that spirit was so important to drive all action on planet Earth, I started working with a dear friend of mine called Carla Delgado, and we started a permaculture farm, which is called Kai Farms. And Kai Farms became my soil for regeneration. And I think this is what Jim was alluding to in the beginning when he said that we really need to bring back nature into our lives to regenerate ourselves and also our communities and our capital markets. We have to rewild ourselves. So as I worked with soil, as I worked with principles of design, whole system thinking, permaculture, I redesigned my inner landscape. And in the process, I met Jennifer, who's now a dear soul sister. And because Isla was working also for food and, you know, changing our food systems, and we met at an eco village in the Philippines. And then we realized that we are really connected to this consciousness that wants to serve without really wanting too much in return for ourselves, because we as humanity, as one family of humanity, have realized that we must give back what we have taken from planet Earth. And that is what is really the Global Eco Village is value of creating these small communities, especially during these times of climate change and COVID. We've realized that cities are becoming unsustainable. And if we look into, say, another 100 years or 80 years, if we think of planet Earth as Earth 2100, how would we all be living? In my consciousness, we will be living in smaller communities. We will be living in eco villages that honor connectivity of each other to nature. And these eco villages need capital to flow into them to scale up. And when we talk about, you know, rethinking, redesigning capital investments, so the humble call today is to look at, you know, smaller communities and rechannel your capital and to see how this capital is adding value into just not to your economic bottom line, but your social, cultural, your ecological, and your whole system. How is it empowering your soul to do better work for the future generations? So as it is said that, you know, we're all part of this system. And as part of this system, sometimes we cannot really see ourselves. And to see ourselves, we have to get deep attention and awareness to the fact that we are the system. And when we regenerate ourselves, we will regenerate the systems we are trying to change. And I think Benjamin and Jennifer and my story is that story of regenerating ourselves. And today, that has given us the power, the consciousness to actively regenerate and rewild our outside world.
Thank you, Amina. Over to you, Jim.
Well, thank you, Jennifer, Amina, Benjamin. And I want to start just acknowledging your passion, Jennifer, and welcoming your emotion and your deep caring for what you're doing to make a better world. I think it does us all good to feel someone's emotion. And so I just want to thank you for being so openly transparent about your deep caring. You know, it's worth remembering, you know, that when Jesus was ascending to Jerusalem in his final trip, that he got outside the walls of Jerusalem. It says Jesus wept. Jesus wept, and that's was important for him and important for you and important for all of us. So I just want to name it and thank you for it. And I'd like to start where, Amina, where you ended up, around the importance of regeneration. And I'd love each of you to just comment on this transition from sustainability to regeneration as the central challenge of our time. Because I think, we've, over the last 50 years, we've gotten used to the term sustainability while we've been at the same time destroying the ecosystem that we were supposed to be being sustainable with reckless abandon. And now, as I indicated, there's not enough nature left intact for us to be sustainable with it anymore. And I would love just to hear your comments, given your vantage points of whether you agree with this, you may disagree with it, you may have some other comments on it. But starting with you, Amina, then Benjamin, then Jennifer, I would love to initiate our dialogue with the comments on this.
Thank you, Jim. Yes, I think that's a very, very crucial reflection, because a lot of our humanity still is, thinking of treading into sustainability, and you said in the beginning that we need to be at regeneration and even beyond. We don't know what really lies beyond. So for me personally, sustainability is sustaining a status quo of using your natural resources, right? And we as humanity have already gone much beyond that. We have exploited and nearly exhausted all our natural resources. So there is really nothing to sustain in that dimension. And we have extracted. So to balance that extraction, we have to now give back and regenerate. So for example, just in the arena of, building soil, for over maybe 60, 70 years now, with at least I can speak about India and the rest of the world also, we had the Green Revolution, where we said after the world wars, we must scale food for humanity because our population was growing. So we brought in all this industrialized mindset. And from that, what we did was we depleted our soils. We just took away everything, and then we were adding, thinking we are sustaining a certain scale of production. But in that, we were degenerating that very soil that was producing. So now it is said that our water tables have, gone beyond certain limits, and our soil doesn't have diversity of microorganisms and health. And so now we have to give back, which means we have to build and regrow, which means we have to go back to indigenous wisdom and see how we're doing it. So for me personally, regeneration is going back a whole cycle back to the indigenous and how things were done in the pre-industrial era, and then combining it with technology for good in this era. And I personally believe that we are at regeneration today because it is an ecological crisis which is based in our spiritual crisis. And that's why we need the sacred economics to regenerate, even to, I think, reconstruct what wealth and progress means for us. So regeneration is definitely looking at all the dimensions. Sustainability in the past was, businesses just thought, how do we become sustainable? Which meant, how do we sustain unlimited growth? Which is really a phenomena that is not going to be sustained in a limited biosphere, right? So regeneration is really creating more living systems, right? Creating more living businesses that have the capacity to survive without human intervention. We as a species might not be here, but at least we can give this gift to whatever life is on planet Earth that we care deeply. So that is my...
Beautifully put. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amina. Benjamin.
Yes, Jim, thanks for that question. It's indeed, like Amina said, the shift from sustainability to regeneration is what is needed to make our planet livable again in the long run. And as she already said, the way I feel it in my own journey, it all starts with an inner transformation within. We can say a regeneration of who we are within ourselves. So as I had indicated, I had a certain need, a need for people to see me as good. That's not necessarily a good thing, but it gave me a certain, that's not a bad thing, but it put pressure on me to get something from people, right? If I didn't get them to see that I was good, I felt burdened, I felt pressured, I wanted to change it. And I think most of us have certain needs, certain psychological, emotional needs that drives us to take, right? To get more out of it. For some people, it's shopping. For other people, it's power. For some people, it's a big house. Other people, it's more emotional things. But what we need is to regenerate ourselves first, within ourselves. And for me, that is learning how to love. When you can love, it means you have love within yourself. It means you are self-sustained. You are filled with a certain energy that gives you the power to actually regenerate. You are self-sustained from within, so you can put into other systems and other people the things they need, the energy they need, the inputs they need to regenerate them, or to help them, I should say, regenerate themselves. So it all begins within. We shift within ourselves, we stop taking more and more out of certain needs, and we begin to give, and that allows us to regenerate people and the planet.
Yeah, beautifully put. That's a beautiful compliment to what Amina was saying. It's we have to regenerate as much from the inside out as the outside in. And in fact, if we don't do both, we're not going to achieve either.
Yeah.
And that's both the challenge and the demand of our time. Absolutely. Consciousness and ecology renewal simultaneously. Beautifully put. Beautifully put. Jennifer, what comment would you make?
I would start with really, for me, it's knowing who I am and what I stand for, and my alignment to that, to who I am. Because when I feel aligned and really on a mission to align myself with my purpose, my higher self, then I know that I'm capable of doing anything else. That
Yes.
I can manifest things on the ground in this material plane. It is really not possible for us to really regenerate ourselves without it coming from our higher self. We cannot just really regenerate ourselves from the physical dimension, because this would then be the ego for me to be talking and doing things rather than our self. So to truly regenerate, it starts from aligning ourselves with our higher purpose and to be able to manifest in the physical plane. So thank you.
Yes, yes. That's a beautiful point. And that's in some ways the goal, if when you bring the inner and the outer together and you rejuvenate the interior consciousness while we try to rejuvenate the ecology, what it activates is our highest potential. What it activates is purpose and passion. As Andrew Harvey says, what is it that wakes you up at 3 a.m. in the morning and you just know that you have to do it? Is it saving animals? Is it working on the environment in one way or another, and social justice in one way or another? What is it that animates your soul? That's what you need to be doing. Because if you do that, that in and of itself is what regenerates and rejuvenates. So that's a beautiful, beautiful point to make. I'd like to circle now to a comment that Rob Wheeler has made in the chat, that years ago he was working with the Global Eco Village Network, and they started to develop a UN partnership to support holistic, systematic, regenerative approaches to sustainable rural development. And that one of the founders of the organization put together a program for the US Peace Corps. And he came up with an idea to create a global network of resource and service centers in each bioregion in order to support local communities and villages to transition to a sustainable future and care for people's human needs. Just imagine, says Rob, if we could use impact investments to capitalize such a network of resource and service centers around the world. So I want to seed a thought into that beautiful mind of yours, Jennifer. And you know, we're launching this new masters in regenerative action. It's a whole new kind of MBA. And what we're doing with Ed Muller and his university in Costa Rica is he's activating bioregions from around the world. We're working with the Bioregion Community Network. And then Marilyn Hamilton and Beth Sanders of Intro Cities Meshworks are activating cities that are engaging in regeneration. I think it might be worth a conversation to see how the impact investment community could join a coalition like this, because if you're generating content on regeneration, you're linking it to actions on the ground in bioregions and cities, then if you brought in impact investing specifically around regeneration, ISLA, for example, could take on rural development projects that would be coming up. So anyway, I thank you, Rob Wheeler, for that very good suggestion. And I raise it because I think, given the urgency of our time, only radical collaboration is going to deliver us. Where we've got to move out of what we've been traditionally doing as universities, as NGOs, as financial firms, as governments, and embrace new possibilities in new configurations of partnerships. Because it's essential that we all hold hands here, it seems to me. So anyway, I'd love to have your quick comment on this possibility from the three of you.
Jim, sorry, I missed a lot of the things you said because my Wi-Fi disconnected. So I would really like, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. I can,
okay.
Call you later, Jennifer, when we have better connection to talk it through. But basically, and maybe Benjamin and Amina can comment. I think this is an opportunity for broad-based collaboration between bioregions and cities and academic institutions and financial investment firms to come up with new ways of having impact around the central mission of regeneration. I think that's the essential point that Rob is making that might enable us out of this Zoom session to develop new partnerships.
May I just share a work that we're doing in the Philippines where we're trying to do something similar. As was brought by the pandemic, even before the pandemic, we were focusing on the food systems because we recognized that the food that we feed our people is not good for their bodies, and therefore it's not going to transform their consciousness. It's not going to help them transform. So we really embarked on looking at an ecosystem approach to really include the smallholder farmers in the entire value chain, that they actually be part of the solution rather than and be the beneficiaries of investments and initiatives rather than other segment of the food system. So what we are doing there is to ensure that there is a systemic approach rather than a business approach, that the money is not just flowing into individual businesses, but it would flow into the entire ecosystem and redesigning the system so that we can facilitate the change that would actually regenerate the planet. So a lot of the things that we're focused on are more on the regenerative agricultural practices rather than traditional agricultural practices to be able to produce the food that we need for healthier bodies. So that's just an example of how we're collaborating and we're really looking at partnerships, and we're not doing it alone. So it's a complete ecosystem and collaborative approach.
Amina, Benjamin, any comments on this?
Yes, Jim, thank you. I think thank you for bringing that back into our circle. For me personally, and I think as also an ambassador of the Global Eco Village Network, that is our greatest essence. We believe that we need to rest ourselves in collaborations and partnerships and interdependence and move away from competition, right? There's enough in our world if we use it wisely and we use it collectively. And I think the call of the United Nations also with the restoration of ecosystems decade, the main strategy is we have to do radical collaborations. And I'm so happy and glad to see Rob Wheeler here, who's been a great elder and a part of the Eco Village Network. And I think the higher purpose of our gathering today is to forge a collaboration and a call to action to impact investors who already haven't shifted to this place of higher consciousness, that there is a huge network of eco villages, eco communities, eco projects on the ground, just waiting to scale and waiting to receive your capital so that it can also transform its consciousness. So as the United Nations itself said, they've said that, we don't need the old paradigm of corporations and governments to make the shift. We need this new band of really, higher consciousness people who are, healers and musicians and writers and broad thinkers. And I think that's the work also, Jim, that the Ubiverse, Ubiquity University is doing, is bringing these minds and these hearts together. So yes, thank you for sending energy to that.
Thank you.
Yeah, amazing. I want to just echo that and say that over the past sort of 8 years as I've been on my journey, I've seen so many people who've been on similar journeys of sort of breaking down their egos and let's say regenerating themselves from within, because we simply cannot really collaborate if our egos put these boundaries between us, put these walls, make us sensitive, make us easily offended, easily angry or judgmental of others. That is the very thing that prevents us from collaborating together. And if we want to regenerate our planet, we're going to have to work together. And working together takes us to break down the ego boundaries. So I'm very grateful whenever I see people, saying, oh my God, I've been through such a tough journey, 10 years, 15 years, struggling, working. And now I realize that it's been my ego holding me down, and I've had the chance to break it, to break these walls down. And now I feel ready to collaborate. Now I want to make my vision into a communal vision, a shared vision. I want to work together with people. I think we're here now at that time, right when we need it, where a lot of people with the potential have sort of gotten ready to actually join as one. And that's the power that we're going to need to regenerate the planet. So I'm very hopeful that in this decade of ecosystems restoration, we will be seeing large groups of people coming together from every level of society, as you were sharing, Jim, from universities, bioregions, cities, to actually step out of their ego, or perhaps it's already largely gone, to unite as one.
That, sir, was a beautiful final statement. And it's the truth, everyone. The world has gotten to such a point that more and more people are waking up and want to get engaged. And our responsibility as people who've been in the fields of the Lord, as it were, day by day, like Amina, like Benjamin, like Jennifer, working their hearts out to help the poor and the disadvantaged in this case. We need to understand that there's an army behind us of people who want to now help out. And so the challenges boil down to regeneration in a spirit of radical collaboration. I think that's the bottom line on planet Earth in 2021 as we look to how we can help the United Nations implement the decade on ecosystem restoration. So Jennifer, I want to thank you, and I'd like to be in touch with you later on how we can enhance our collaboration. And Benjamin, Amina, this has been a beautiful and inspiring program. And again, Jennifer and both of you, Benjamin and Amina, thank you for your heartfulness today. Thank you for your heartfulness. It's all about heart coherence. It's all about living the life of the heart. And that shone through beautifully today. So I just want to thank you. Then tomorrow, everyone, we're going to shift our focus to our interior relationship with the cosmic whole. We're going to speak with Maurizio and Zaya Benazzo, who are the co-founders of a massive organization called Science and Non-Duality that has been really looking at the interface of the latest research into science, physics, cosmology, and realizing that the latest science is actually describing the world the way the mystics for thousands of years have described the world. And that is in a non-dual singularity in which all of us find ourselves in an interconnected web of learning, information, compassion, and deep care. So that'll be tomorrow on Humanity Rising, same time, same station, 5:00 p.m. Central European time here on Zoom. But Jennifer, Amina, Benjamin, thank you so much for everything that you brought to us today. And we'll see you all again tomorrow, everyone, back here on Zoom for Science and Non-Duality. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.